Private Michael Mike Thompson sat in the transport shuttle, looking out at the massive orbital station ahead. Today was his first day with the Interstellar Alliance, humanity's ticket to the galactic community. He was just a regular kid from Michigan who joined the military to see the stars. Now here he was. "You excited?" asked the soldier next to him, a woman with red hair and freckles. Her name tag said, Sarah Martinez. "Terrified," Mike admitted. "I heard the briefing. There's a lot of alien species out there. What if?" The shuttle docked with a hiss. Alarms blared. Red lights flooded the cabin. A voice crackled over the intercom, "All human personnel report to command immediately. This is a critical security alert." Mike and Sarah exchanged confused looks. They'd only been on the station for 10 minutes. They rushed down the metallic corridors, past floating holograms and alien soldiers who stopped and stared at them. Some backed away. One blue-skinned being actually ran. In the command center, General Patricia Walsh stood with her arms crossed, her face red. Around her were dozens of alien officials. Insectoid creatures, reptilians, beings made of pure energy. None of them looked happy. "General Walsh," Mike said carefully, "what's happening?" She didn't answer. Instead, she pulled up a holographic display. On it was a list of names, but they weren't normal names. Xyler the Soul Eater, Walsh read aloud, pointing to a name. Krell the Devourer of Worlds. Morthoz the Eternal Destroyer. Mike's stomach dropped. He scrolled down and saw his own name, Malakar the Void Walker. "This is insane," Sarah whispered, reading her designation. "Sereth the Painbringer." An alien official with 4 arms stepped forward. His skin was silver and his eyes glowed red. "General Walsh, your soldiers have been properly registered in the galactic census. However, there is a complication." "What kind of complication?" Walsh demanded. The alien pulled up another display. It showed an ancient empire, the Vex. The images were terrifying. Massive warriors with impossible weapons. Entire civilizations brought to dust. Wars that had lasted centuries. "These designations belong to the Vex Empire," the alien said slowly. "An extinct civilization. The most feared military force the galaxy has ever known. Their soldiers were legendary. Unstoppable. No one has seen a Vex in 10,000 years. The room fell silent. "Your naming algorithm made a mistake," Walsh said carefully. "These are just human soldiers. Rookies. We can fix this." "Fix it?" The alien's red eyes narrowed. "The Galactic Census database has never made an error. It is impossible. The algorithm is sacred. Ancient. It has processed trillions of names across billions of years." "Well, it made one now," Walsh said. Another alien, this one with scales and a forked tongue, hissed, "If the Vex have returned, this changes everything. The Alliance is at risk." Mike felt his heart pounding. This was wrong. This was all wrong. He was just a soldier. He wasn't some ancient cosmic horror. "We need to correct this immediately," Walsh insisted. But the silver alien shook his massive head. "The database cannot be edited. To question its accuracy would cause a cascade failure across the entire galactic infrastructure. Millions of species depend on it for everything: trade, law, military deployment." "So what are you saying?" Walsh asked, though she probably already knew the answer. "Your soldiers are registered as Vex," the alien said. "Whether they are or not, the entire galaxy now believes they are. And the galaxy will react accordingly." Within 6 hours, the news had spread across the galaxy like wildfire. The Vex had returned. Mike watched from the observation deck as alien ships began arriving at the station, not to greet humanity but to watch them, to study them, to fear them. "We're like animals in a zoo," Sarah said, standing next to him. "Terrifying animals," another soldier, Kevin from Ohio, added. His registered name was Korthax the Obliterator. He laughed nervously. "I can't believe this is happening." General Walsh called an emergency meeting with all human military personnel. About 200 soldiers filled the briefing room, all of them now officially classified as Vex. "Listen up," Walsh said. "We have a problem. A big one. The galaxy thinks you're all legendary cosmic horrors. This is going to create tension. Possibly conflict. But here's what we're going to do. We're going to operate as normally as possible. No provocation. No escalation. We're going to show these aliens that we're peaceful." But not everyone on the station agreed. 3 hours later, an alien fleet arrived at the outer defense perimeter. 40 ships. Heavily armed. The lead commander, a being named ZYX Thor, requested immediate communication with Malakar the Void Walker, Mike. General Walsh brought Mike to the communications chamber. A holographic projection materialized before them. HFY Thor's face filled the screen. He had a face like a praying mantis, with compound eyes and mandibles that clicked when he spoke. Malachar, HFY Thor said, his voice deep and resonant. We meet at last. I have studied the Vex for 3,000 years. Your return is both terrible and glorious. Mike cleared his throat. Actually, sir, there's been a mistake. I'm not humble, HFY Thor interrupted. As always, the legends say the Vex speak rarely and only truth. How many worlds will you take? How many species will you consume? None, Mike said firmly. We're here to join the Alliance. To be peaceful. HFY Thor's compound eyes blinked slowly. A test. You speak of peace, but the Vex were never peaceful. Your strategy unfolds. I see now. You are laying traps. Making your enemies comfortable before the strike. That's not. General Walsh grabbed Mike's arm and shook her head. She switched off the transmission. This is worse than I thought, she muttered. That night, Mike sat in his quarters, a small metallic room that felt like a cell. He stared at the holoscreen showing his new name, his new identity. Malachar the Void Walker. It sounded like something from a nightmare. But as he watched the alien ships moving in formation outside his window, maintaining a careful distance, something occurred to him. They were scared. All of them. The most advanced civilizations in the galaxy were terrified of him and his fellow soldiers. Not because of what humanity could do, but because of what they thought humanity was. It was absurd. It was terrifying. And yet, it was an advantage. General Walsh didn't sleep that night. She sat in her office, analyzing data, running scenarios. By dawn, she'd made a decision. She called in her top commanders, humans and the few alien officers who had actually worked with humanity long enough to recognize the truth. Captain James Chin, Major Rebecca Foster, and Colonel David Morrison gathered around her desk. We're not going to fix this, Walsh announced. Everyone stared at her. Respectfully, ma'am, Chin said, we need to fix this. It's the right thing to do. Is it? Walsh asked. Let's look at the facts. Humanity just joined a galaxy with thousands of hostile species. We have inferior firepower. We have inferior technology. We have been in this alliance for exactly 1 day, and already 3 different species are demanding we be quarantined. So we use this, Morrison said slowly, understanding her point. Exactly, Walsh said. We weaponize the misunderstanding. Foster shook her head. That's manipulation. That's survival, Walsh interrupted. The galaxy thinks we're the Vex, the most feared empire in galactic history. We can either spend years trying to convince them otherwise, getting attacked, colonized, and possibly extinct in the process. Or we can lean into it. Chin rubbed his temples. You want us to pretend to be cosmic horrors. I want us to be smart, Walsh said. We'll conduct our patrols exactly as planned. But we'll do it with purpose. With confidence. We'll use the fear they already have. We'll make them think twice before attacking us because they won't know what we're capable of. And when they figure out the truth? Foster asked. By then, Walsh said, we'll have built something. Alliances. Respect. Real strength. The truth will take time to spread. By then we won't need the fear anymore. It was audacious. It was risky. But it was their best chance. The plan was put into motion immediately. Human soldiers began wearing armor designed to look more intimidating. Symbols were added to their uniforms. Symbols that matched ancient Vex iconography that the Alliance's historians had reconstructed. Engineers created tech that amplified communications, making human voices sound deeper, more otherworldly. Mike's first patrol was to a neutral space station. He and his team of 6 soldiers walked through the corridors with absolute confidence, their new armor catching the light in unsettling ways. Other beings literally parted before them, creating corridors of empty space. No one fired a shot. No one challenged them. They were simply feared. It was the strangest feeling in the world. Mike had always been invisible. Just another face in the crowd. But now, with the name Malachar the Void Walker, and the armor to match, he had become something larger than himself. Something terrifying. As they returned to their ship, Kevin from Ohio whispered, Did we just win? Without doing anything? Pretty much, Sarah confirmed. But that night something changed. An alarm sounded, a distress call from a human mining colony on the edge of Alliance space. A hostile species called the Krell were attacking. They were brutal, efficient, and they were winning. General Walsh had a choice. Send help and risk exposing the fact that her soldiers couldn't possibly be omnipotent Vex legends, or let humans die. She sent Mike and his team. They arrived to find the colony under siege. The Krell, insectoid creatures the size of bears with razor-sharp mandibles, were tearing through the colony's defenses. But the moment they saw human soldiers with Vex designations emerging from the dropship, something changed. The Krell commander stopped mid-attack. It observed Mike and his team for a long moment. Then it retreated. All of them. The entire Krell force withdrew, leaving the colony standing. Mike couldn't believe it. They'd done nothing. Absolutely nothing. And the enemy had just given up. As they walked through the colony helping injured survivors, Mike understood the truth. The fear was more powerful than any weapon. The reputation was more valuable than firepower. A name could protect more lives than armor ever could. The Vex name generator hadn't made a mistake. It had made them gods. 3 weeks later, the entire dynamic of the Interstellar Alliance had shifted. Where human soldiers went, other species surrendered, retreated, or offered negotiation. No one wanted to fight the Vex. No one wanted to risk it. But there was a problem that General Walsh hadn't anticipated. The other species expected the Vex to act like legendary warriors. To be calculating, precise, strategic. To make moves that seemed genius but were actually part of a deeper plan. Every action humanity took was analyzed, picked apart, interpreted through the lens of ancient Vex doctrine. When Private Thompson accidentally tripped during a diplomatic negotiation with the Zortian Council and knocked over a ceremonial vase, the Zortians interpreted it as a power move, a display of dominance, a message that the Vex disrespected their traditions. The incident resulted in the Zortians immediately agreeing to a trade agreement in humanity's favor, just to appease them. When Sarah Martinez got lost during a patrol and ended up in a restricted sector of the Alliance station, she was found by 3 security guards who took one look at her Vex designation and let her pass without question. They even apologized for the inconvenience. When Kevin from Ohio malfunctioned a piece of equipment during a joint military exercise and it exploded spectacularly, the alien officers watching didn't laugh. They took notes. They studied the footage. They rewrote their tactical manuals based on what they believed was a brilliant new weapon deployment strategy. Humanity's chaos, their unpredictability, their luck, their sheer human ability to succeed despite terrible odds, was being interpreted as strategic genius. General Walsh realized something remarkable. Human soldiers were actually winning not because they were following orders, but because they were breaking them in creative ways. The rigid, algorithmic thinking of most alien species was useless against human improvisation. She called another meeting, but this time with all of the soldier leadership present. Here's what's happening, Walsh explained, pulling up reports. The Vex doctrine was built on precision, calculation, perfect knowledge of the enemy. But humans don't work that way. We think on our feet. We get lucky. We break rules and somehow come out ahead. And the aliens don't know how to fight that. So we lean harder into the chaos? Chen asked. We don't change anything, Walsh said. We just keep being human. But we do it with confidence. We act like every mistake is intentional. We move like we know something they don't. We let their fear do the work. It was a profound realization. Humanity's greatest weakness, their unpredictability, their lack of perfect organization, had become their greatest strength. Over the next month, human soldiers conducted dozens of operations. Some were successful because they were well planned. Some were successful because they were completely chaotic. It didn't matter. To the watching galaxy, it all looked like masterful strategy. Mike was assigned to a rescue operation on a planet called Kepler-7, where a human diplomatic team had been captured by the Valdrons, a species known for their brutal interrogation techniques and their complete lack of mercy. The Valdrons had never lost a prisoner. They had a reputation almost as feared as the Vex. Mike's team of 12 soldiers landed outside the compound where the diplomats were being held. There were 40 Valdron guards. By any logical calculation, the humans should have lost. But Mike did something crazy. Instead of approaching quietly or using strategy, he walked directly toward the front gate with his team in full formation. He wasn't trying to be sneaky. He wasn't trying to be clever. He was just walking toward them like he owned the place. The Valdrons, watching this from their guard posts, began to panic. Why would the Vex walk directly toward them? What trap was being set? They began retreating, calling for backup, preparing for an assault that never came. Mike and his team simply walked through the open gates. The diplomats were being held in the central structure. As they moved deeper into the compound, Valdrons scattered like they'd seen a ghost. It took them 7 minutes to free the diplomats and walk out. Not a single shot was fired. When they returned to the ship, one of the diplomats, An older woman named Dr. Eleanor Price pulled Mike aside. "That was the bravest thing I've ever seen," she said. Mike almost laughed. "That was the dumbest thing I've ever done. We should have been slaughtered." "But we weren't," Dr. Price said, "because they were terrified. And I realized something watching you walk through that compound. Maybe fear isn't the enemy of peace. Maybe fear is just the first step toward respect. Once they respect us, the fear doesn't matter anymore." Mike hadn't thought about it that way. But she was right. The problem began with the Vendrus. The Vendrus were one of the oldest species in the galaxy, over 1,000,000 years old. They had seen empires rise and fall. They had watched the Vex at the height of their power. And they had been one of the few species to survive contact with the Vex and live to remember it. When they heard that the Vex had returned, they didn't retreat. They didn't negotiate. They prepared for war. A Vendrus diplomat named Kael'thas requested an immediate face-to-face meeting with Malachar the Void Walker. The tone of the request was not diplomatic. It was a challenge. General Walsh considered refusing. But she knew that eventually, someone would have to stand up to the deception. Better to face it on her terms. She sent Mike to the meeting. The location was a neutral platform in deep space, a massive orbital station designed for diplomacy. Mike arrived with an honor guard of 6 soldiers, all with fearsome Vex designations. Kael'thas arrived with a small contingent of his own species. The Vendrus were beautiful and terrible, tall, elegant beings with skin that seemed to shift between colors, and eyes that held the weight of 1,000,000 years. Kael'thas himself moved with the confidence of someone who had seen empires crumble. "Malachar," Kael'thas said, his voice like wind through ancient ruins. "I have waited 10,000 years to see your face again. The last time we met, your people had just destroyed the Antares Confederation. Do you remember? You personally killed their leader, Vex Lord Morith, in single combat. Tore his body apart with your bare hands. Scattered his atoms across the void. It was glorious and terrible." Mike had no idea what Kael'thas was talking about. But he didn't panic. He did what every human soldier had learned to do. He thought on his feet. "I have destroyed many leaders," Mike said slowly. "Their names blur together over the millennia." Kael'thas's color-shifting skin flickered with something that might have been pleasure. "Yes. Yes, the burden of eternal victory. Tell me, how many worlds have you conquered since returning?" "None yet," Mike said. "We are patient. We are observing. Waiting for the right moment to reshape the galaxy." It was a guess, but it felt right. The ancient Vex would be patient. They would be strategic. They wouldn't simply conquer everything immediately. Kael'thas circled Mike slowly, studying him. "You have grown since I last saw you. Larger. More formidable. But there is something different. Something I cannot quite define." Mike's heart was pounding. This was the moment everything could fall apart. This was someone who actually remembered the Vex. Someone who would know if he was lying. "I am evolved," Mike said carefully. 1,000,000 years of existence changes one. We grow. We adapt. We become more than we were. Kael'thas stopped circling. He looked directly into Mike's eyes. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Then Kael'thas smiled. "Yes. Yes, you are different. Wiser perhaps. I think the return of the Vex will be interesting. I did not come to fight you, Malachar. I came to understand what you wanted. What your goals are." Mike took a breath. "We want the same thing the Vex always wanted, to dominate the galaxy. To make it ours. But we are willing to be patient. To form alliances with those who can help us." "An alliance?" Kael'thas seemed pleased. "The Vex never allied with anyone." "The Vex are learning," Mike said. "Time changes everything. Even empires." Kael'thas regarded him for another long moment, then extended his hand. It was a human gesture. He had clearly learned how to greet species across the galaxy. Mike shook it. "Very well," Kael'thas said. "The Vendrus will not oppose your reign. In fact, we will support you. We have waited long for someone strong enough to rule the galaxy. The weak nations squabble over resources. With the Vex at the helm, there will be order." As Mike left the platform, he realized that he had just committed humanity to dominating the galaxy. But somehow, through the sheer force of confidence and careful words, he had done it without firing a shot. He had outnegotiated someone who was 1,000,000 years old. Being a legend was exhausting. 2 months after Mike's meeting with Kael'thas, human soldiers were being called to negotiate conflicts across the galaxy. The Vendrus had spread word that the Vex supported strong order, and suddenly every ambitious species wanted the Vex blessing on their territorial claims. Mike found himself in situations that would have terrified him weeks ago. Negotiating between the Crystalline Collective and the Rock Empire. mediating disputes over resource-rich planets, standing in rooms with some of the oldest, most powerful beings in existence, all expecting him to be an ancient cosmic horror. The weight of the name was crushing. Sarah found him one night in the observation deck of the orbital station, staring out at the stars. "You okay?" she asked. "I'm pretending to be someone I'm not," Mike said. "And it's working. But what happens when they figure it out? What happens when someone like Kale does realizes I'm just a kid from Michigan who got lucky? Do you want to stop?" Sarah asked. "I don't know," Mike admitted. "The thing is, it's working. We've prevented 3 wars just by showing up. The Rock and the Collective have been fighting for 200 years. 200 years, Sarah. And we walked in there, and they both agreed to negotiate, just because they were terrified of what the Vex might do if the war continued." "So you saved lives," Sarah said. "That's good, right?" "By lying," Mike countered. "By using the tools you were given," Sarah corrected. "The naming algorithm made a mistake. But the fact that we can use that mistake to create peace, that's not evil, Mike. That's smart." General Walsh called an all-hands meeting that night. "We need to talk about the future," she said. "Because things are changing and we need to be intentional about how we guide that change." She pulled up a holographic map of the galaxy. She highlighted dozens of conflict zones, places where species were on the verge of war. "Humanity joined the alliance to survive," Walsh said. "We were the smallest, the newest, the most vulnerable. But we've become something else. We've become the force that keeps the peace. The fear of the Vex, even though we're not actually the Vex, has prevented countless wars. Species that would have conquered each other now negotiate, because they're afraid of what we'll do." "So we keep lying?" Chen asked. "We keep using what we have," Walsh said. "And we prepare for the moment when the truth comes out. Because it will come out. The algorithm will eventually be investigated. Historians will find evidence. Someone will realize we're human. And when that happens, we need to be strong enough that the truth doesn't matter. We need to have built something real." She pulled up another map. This one showed human colonies, trade routes, alliances. "Look at what we've built in 2 months," Walsh continued. "We have trade agreements with 17 species. We have military alliances with 5. We have formal recognition as a major power in the galaxy. When the truth comes out, we won't be a joke. We'll be a legitimate superpower. And then they'll realize we manipulated them," Morrison said. "Some will," Walsh acknowledged. "And we'll deal with that. We'll be honest. We'll say that the misunderstanding allowed us to prove ourselves. That we used the fear to build something real. That now, the fear doesn't matter because we've proven ourselves through action." It was a gamble. A massive gamble. But humanity had always been good at those. That night, Mike sat in his quarters and wrote a message to his family back on Earth. He couldn't tell them the whole truth, communications were monitored, but he tried to explain what was happening in careful language. He was living a double life. By day he was Malachar the Void Walker, an ancient cosmic horror. By night he was Mike Thompson from Michigan, a kid who was in way over his head but doing his best. He didn't know which one he really was anymore. It started with a message from an unknown source. A data packet was delivered to General Walsh's personal terminal. No sender. No origin point. Just a message, the truth about the Vex. The algorithm glitch. The human deception. Everything. Transmitted to every species in the Alliance in 24 hours unless humanity surrenders its military authority. Blackmail. Someone had figured out the truth and they wanted to use it as leverage. Walsh called an emergency meeting. This time the entire command structure was present. Military, diplomatic, scientific. They had 1 day to figure out what to do. "We have options," Walsh said. "We can confess before the blackmailer releases the information. We can try to track down the source and neutralize them. Or we can double down." "Double down?" Foster asked. "How?" "We release the truth ourselves," Walsh said. "We control the narrative. We tell the galaxy that we discovered a glitch, we tried to fix it, but it became a tool for peace. We frame it not as deception but as brilliant strategy." "They won't believe us," Chin said. "Some won't," Walsh agreed. "But some will. And the ones that matter, the ones like Kale does, the ones we've built real relationships with, they might understand. They might even respect it." "It's still a lie," Morrison said. "It's the truth," Walsh corrected. "A complicated truth, but still the truth." Before they could decide, alarms blared throughout the station. A fleet had arrived. Not human. Not friendly. A massive armada belonging to the ZYX Collective, an ancient empire that had been peaceful for 1,000 years. They had been waiting to see what the Vex would do. and it seemed like the time for patience was over. A message came through, Malachar. We demand your surrender or we will destroy you. It was the showdown everyone had known was coming. General Walsh called Mike to the command center. He arrived with Sarah and Kevin. It's time, Walsh said simply. She broadcast a message to the entire galaxy. Every species, every news feed, every military channel. This is General Patricia Walsh of the United Planetary Command. I am about to tell you something that will change how you see us forever. But I want you to hear it from us, not from rumors or threats. She explained the naming algorithm glitch. She explained how it started as a bureaucratic nightmare. She explained how humanity had initially tried to correct it, but eventually realized that the misunderstanding had prevented wars, saved lives, and brought peace to regions that had been in conflict for centuries. We could have spent years trying to convince you we were not the Vex, Walsh said. But instead we asked ourselves, what if we used this mistake to create something real? What if we proved ourselves not through our name but through our actions? She pulled up reports of every peace negotiation, every conflict prevented, every life saved. The Vex name is a fiction, Walsh continued. But our commitment to peace, to justice, to preventing war, that is real. We are human. We are young. We are unpredictable. We are chaotic. But we have spent the last 2 months proving that we can use those qualities to benefit the entire galaxy. The broadcast ended. For a long moment, there was silence across the galaxy. Then responses started coming in. The Vendrus were first. Kael'thas here. The Vex deception is a disappointment. However, General Walsh's honesty is refreshing. The Vendrus remain allies of humanity. The Rock Empire, we suspected deception. But we also saw peace. We accept this explanation. Dozens of species responded. Some angry. Some respectful. Some neutral. But none demanded immediate military action. Except the ZYX Collective. This changes nothing, their commander transmitted. Humans claiming to be Vex, humans pretending to be humans, it is all the same. You have risen too far too fast. The galaxy is not ready for a young species with such power. We will take what you have, and the galaxy will return to proper order. The fleet began moving toward the station. General Walsh looked at Mike. What do you want to do? Mike thought about everything that had happened. The fear. The lies. The moments of genuine peace. The lives saved. We fight, Mike said. Not as the Vex. As humanity. For the first time since this all began, he took off his intimidating armor. He put on a simple human military uniform with Thompson on the back. Sarah did the same. Kevin did the same. They walked into the hangar bay and suited up for combat, not as legendary ancient warriors, but as what they actually were. Trained soldiers who had learned to work together to adapt to survive. The battle that followed wasn't graceful or perfectly executed. It was messy and chaotic and sometimes confused. Humans made mistakes. Human soldiers improvised. They changed tactics on the fly. They did things that made no strategic sense but somehow worked. And it worked because the ZYX Collective was trained to fight through calculation and precision. They had no answer for sheer, adaptable chaos. One human pilot, a woman named Jessica Chin, was flying a fighter jet that should have been no match for a ZYX military vessel. She should have been destroyed in the first 10 seconds. Instead, she did something crazy. She flew directly at the ZYX ship, forcing it to maneuver to avoid collision, which left it vulnerable to her wingman's attack. It was reckless and insane and brilliant. Within 2 hours, the ZYX Collective had suffered enough casualties that their commander requested negotiations. You are not the Vex, the commander transmitted. But perhaps you are something worse. We are just human, General Walsh replied. We make it up as we go along. The ZYX agreed to a ceasefire. It wasn't peace, not yet. But it was a beginning. 3 months after the truth came out, everything had changed and nothing had changed. Humanity was no longer considered the Vex. But they were considered something better, something new. A species that had earned their power not through ancient might, but through innovation, adaptation, and sheer determination. The Vex name slowly faded from official documents, replaced with a simple designation, Humans of Earth. But the galaxy didn't forget what had happened. In universities across 1,000 worlds, the name generator paradox became a case study in psychology, strategy, and the power of perception. Philosophers debated whether humanity had lied or simply leveraged the truth in creative ways. The naming algorithm was eventually investigated. Engineers found the glitch, a simple combination of corrupted files and outdated translation matrices. It was the most impactful bug in galactic history. Some wanted to fix it. Others wanted to preserve it as a reminder of what could be achieved when chaos met opportunity. Mike became the face of humanity in the galaxy. Not as Malachar the Void Walker but as Michael Thompson, a kid from Michigan who had negotiated with ancient empires and somehow survived. He never sought the attention but he didn't run from it either. General Walsh was appointed as the official ambassador of Earth to the Interstellar Alliance. She spent her days negotiating trade agreements, forming alliances, and ensuring that humanity's initial advantage, the fear that had protected them, wasn't wasted. Sarah and Kevin continued as military officers. They had earned respect through action, not just reputation. When they walked into a room now, beings didn't flee in terror. They greeted them as equals. But Mike sometimes stood on the observation deck and remembered what it had felt like to be feared. To be misidentified. To be something larger than himself. One night, Kale thus visited the human station personally. The ancient Vendress wanted to see Mike. They sat together in a private chamber looking out at the stars. "I knew you were not truly the Vex," Kale thus said eventually. "From that first meeting. Your fear was too new. A being 10,000 years old does not fear the unknown the way you feared me." "Then why didn't you expose us?" Mike asked. "Because," Kale thus said slowly, "the galaxy needed to believe in something. For so long, species have fought for resources, for territory, for power. The idea of the Vex returning, it terrified them. But it also united them. Even if just for a brief time they feared a common enemy. It gave them perspective. So you let us lie." "I let you teach," Kale thus corrected. "You taught them that peace could be more powerful than war. That fear could be channeled into cooperation. That an entire civilization could change the galaxy's trajectory, not through conquest but through cunning." Kale thus stood to leave. "You are no longer the Vex, Michael Thompson. But you are something the galaxy has never seen before. You are a bridge between who we were and who we could become. Use that wisely." After Kale thus left, Mike sat alone with his thoughts. The naming algorithm had made a mistake. But that mistake had led to something real. Humanity had been given a gift, not through their own achievement but through cosmic chance. They had taken that gift and transformed it into genuine power. The fear that had protected them was fading. But the respect they had earned through action would last. That was the real victory. 5 years later, humanity had become one of the most respected species in the Interstellar Alliance. There were no more jokes about the naming algorithm. No more references to the Vex. Instead, there were thousands of stories about how humans had navigated impossible odds through sheer determination and creative thinking. Mike had left military service. He was now a professor at the New Earth Institute, teaching alien students about human history, human culture, and the strange journey that had brought humanity to the stars. His classroom was always full. One day, a young student, a crystalline being who communicated through light patterns, asked him a question. "Professor Thompson, do you regret what humanity did? The deception?" Mike considered the question carefully. "I regret that we felt we had to lie," he said finally. "But I don't regret what came from it. Because the deception forced us to prove ourselves. We couldn't rely on a reputation anymore. We had to actually be good at what we did. We had to solve problems that the galaxy had been ignoring for centuries. And in doing that, we became better than the fear that created us." Another student, a rock warrior, asked, "Would you do it again? If you had known how it would end?" "Yes," Mike said without hesitation. "Because even though it started with a mistake, it led to something real. And that's what matters. Not how you start but what you build." After class, Mike walked across campus. The institute was built in a way that blended human and alien architecture. Curved walls alongside straight lines, light-based technology alongside mechanical systems. It was a physical representation of everything humanity had become in the Interstellar Alliance. Something new. Something that belonged nowhere but had become essential everywhere. He thought about Sarah and Kevin. Sarah was now a commander in the Alliance's peacekeeping force. Kevin had actually become an officer in the Rock military, one of the first humans to cross species lines like that. They still stayed in contact, though their lives had taken them to different corners of the galaxy. He thought about General Walsh. She had retired from diplomatic service and was writing a book about the experience. The manuscript was supposed to be controversial. But Mike knew that by the time it was published, most species would understand what she was trying to say, that strength wasn't just about firepower, and survival wasn't just about perfection. Sometimes the most powerful thing you could do was adapt. Change. Become something new. That night, Mike received a message. It was from the Galactic Archive, the organization responsible for maintaining records across all known species. The naming algorithm error had been officially classified. Not as a mistake but as a historical artifact. The original glitch would be preserved in a permanent exhibit, alongside the stories of how it changed the galaxy. The message included a transmission from the archive's director. The algorithm that named humans as the Vex will forever be remembered as the moment the galaxy learned that identity is not given, it is earned. Thank you for teaching us that lesson. Mike saved the message. He thought about all the events that had led here. The random error. The chaos of human soldiers. The desperate decision to weaponize fear. The eventual honesty that had made them real. The respect that followed. The name generator hadn't made a mistake after all. It had done something better. It had created an opportunity. And humanity had been just chaotic enough, just human enough, to turn that opportunity into something magnificent. As Mike looked out at the alien skyline, buildings and structures from 100 different civilizations, all existing together, he realized that the real Vex legacy wasn't about fear or domination. It was about the idea that something extraordinary could emerge from something ordinary. That a kid from Michigan could stand in a room with beings who had lived for millions of years and be taken seriously. That chaos could be a strength. That sometimes the best thing you could do was just be authentically, completely, unapologetically yourself. The naming algorithm had tried to make humans into ancient horrors. Instead, it had made them something better. It had made them human. And in a galaxy that had seen empires rise and fall, that was the most powerful force of all. The end.